Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/entitled people, where people think they can do whatever the heck they want because they're better than you. And in today's episode, Karens are leaving their kids at stores, getting their kids taken away, pretending to be the owner's wife to fire staff. It's a crazy one. I hope you enjoy the stories, and do remember to hit that subscribe button for future tales. Let's dive in. Okay, so one important note. I live in a fairly small town, so many people do know each other. This happened last year mid-June. We were on a break from school, and my boyfriend and I decided to get some snacks for a movie date. So as one does, we go to the supermarket and start grabbing our stuff. We were debating which cider to buy when I see a young girl enter the aisle. She looked to be about 3 or 4, and she was scared and crying a bit. Now, as anyone with a little bit of heart would do, we leave the cider for now, and we go to see what's the matter. The little girl looks up at me and says, "Ma." I then say to her, "Oh, have you lost your mom?" She sniffles and nods, and I say, "Well, we're gonna help you find her. Is that okay with you? I'm me, and this is my boyfriend. What's your name?" She tells me her name is Annie, so I then take her by the hand and walked her to the help desk. I then notify the man working the desk that Annie had lost her mother. The guy was very kind, and he asked for Annie's name and family name so he could make a call on the microphone. Annie was sat on a little bench that was facing the exit. That way, she could see if her mother was headed out. It was rush hour Friday at 5 p.m., so it took my boyfriend a while to pay for everything and get to us. By that time, another message was sent around the store. Poor Annie was scared. She kept asking where her mom was, and we tried to entertain her. The manager allowed her to read a book from the book aisle to prevent her from freaking out too much. After an hour, she claimed she was hungry, which seems fair because it was probably around 6 or 6:30 p.m. at that point. We didn't have very healthy food with us, but we did give her a little snack. This went on for about an hour and a half after the first call was made. The manager then pulls my boyfriend and I aside for a minute, saying that they were obligated to call the police because this could be a case of child abandonment. This was a relief in a way because the police would know how to take care of her a little better. About 10 minutes later, 2 policemen showed up and they come inside. My boyfriend, the manager, and I were first asked about the situation. Annie was asked a couple of questions too. The officer said to her, "Hi Annie, I'm a police officer. I'm here to help you find your mommy." Annie then asked if her mom was in trouble, and the officer said, "No, don't worry, she's not in trouble, and neither are you. If we want to find her quickly, I'm gonna need to know what she looks like. Do you think you can help me?" At this, Annie nodded, and she described her mom's hair color, eye color, and very roughly what she was wearing. Mostly colors, since she was only about 3 years old. Shortly after that, a man and woman entered the store. The man was running like crazy, and the woman was slowly walking behind them. The man was calling for Annie, looking so worried. This prompted Annie to look up, and her face lit up, and she ran at them screaming, "Mama! Papa!" The father then hugs her and looks so relieved. He was apologizing to her so many times. The police still asked to see both of their IDs, just to confirm that they were indeed Annie's parents. But it seemed to be more of a formality since Annie was the one to recognize them. Officer 2 then asked what happened, and what we heard shocked us. The mom says, "Well, I was doing my groceries, but Annie was being annoying, so I sent her to look at toys. And I just forgot she was there and went home. It's only when her dad came home from work that we noticed she wasn't there." Officer 2 then says to her, "Miss, you do realize that your daughter could have been kidnapped, right? If these two hadn't been there," gesturing towards us, "who knows what could have happened to her?" The mom says, "Well, it's fine. Why make such a big deal out of it?" She then looks at us and says, "Why did you two even call the police? Are you trying to get me arrested?" My boyfriend tells her, "We didn't call the police, the manager did because it's apparently store policy. We don't know what was going on. This could have been a case of child abandonment." Now, the woman was not pleased by this comment, clearly, and she says, "How dare you? Are you telling me that I'm a bad mother? Is that what you're insinuating, young man?" Before my boyfriend could reply, her husband gives her a look that would make anyone shut up right away. After a bit more talk, the family were allowed to leave, and so were we. The dad thanked us profusely for our time. We went home, had the movie night, but I do think about it sometimes. That woman was so careless with her kid that it baffles me. Okay, first off, I just want to say that I'm so happy that 2 responsible people found the girl, because I can't even bear the thought of a kidnapping happening. And second, I have heard of parents forgetting about their kids, guys, but for 2 hours, 2 hours, you didn't realize for 2 hours until your husband got home and asked you where your kid was. That's when you remembered. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Okay, so I just moved into an apartment last week. So far, everyone I've met in passing has been nice. No one's been too loud at unreasonable hours, arguing with each other, stealing parking spaces, and other typical shared space craziness. Yet, at least, I've only been here a week. I did, however, encounter a Mama Karen and her 6-year-old son. So my apartment is one of those half-in-the-ground units with 2 other floors on top. As such, the top of my patio wall is level to the walking path. If I have my blinds open, you can easily see into my living room and kitchen, and this honestly doesn't bother me. The weather's finally really nice here, so after work yesterday, I opened my patio sliding door and blinds to let the cooler air in while playing some Minecraft. After a while, I could hear a couple of women talking outside, a few units down, just chit-chat. I also heard a smaller kid running around, messing with the gravel along the pathways, and generally just being a bored kid while mommy talked with her friend. Really, no big deal at all. And then it happens. I then heard one of the women call for the kid, saying, "Jason, Jason, Jason, get over here, Jason." I looked up to see the kid standing on the path next to my unit, transfixed on the TV. I'm thinking, uh-oh, he didn't answer quick enough. Mama Karen comes stomping over to him and jerked his arm to force him to look at her, while she yelled in his face about answering her and to not watch TV, especially someone else's. Now, I thought the way she was acting was overkill, but I let it be. He's not my kid and I'm not a parent at all. I did, however, keep paying attention to see if things got worse to jump in, but I didn't stare. I only looked over when she called out to me to apologize for her son. I said it was fine. Mama Karen took him back over to her friend and they continued talking. Eventually, the kid starts playing around near them again. Soon, he was back over at my patio, looking in and watching me play. After that, I hear Mama Karen yell at him again. And this time, the boy flinched hard. Now, it broke my heart to see the effects of abuse in action, and he was just frozen staring at her. This time, I jumped up and went to my patio door. She was already at him by the time, and she was yelling at him again. Now, I tried to interject saying that I truly didn't mind that he was watching me play, and this is where the Karen aspect comes in. She turned to me sickly sweet, the demon gone for a moment, and kindly explained that dear Jason was grounded, and he was not even allowed to look at a TV. To which I looked at him and said, "Bummer, dude." Now, she didn't like that I addressed him and not her. I also don't think that she liked that I showed him sympathy instead of instantly taking her side, even though I had no idea why he was punished in the first place. She then asked me something that blew my mind. She said, "Hey, can you please just shut off your TV when we're out here? We're usually out here for about an hour a day. Can you just shut it off or close your windows and blinds?" Now, I'm not gonna lie, the people pleaser that I've been raised to be almost said, "Oh sure, no problem," and I was gonna do it. Then I stopped myself thinking, what? Telling me to do what in my house? I'm trying to have a shinier spine, so I told her, no, I won't. And oh boy, that sure as heck was her trigger word. I thought she was gonna reach in, jerk me around, and yell at me like I was her kid. The look was so instantly pissed off. The woman then again explained the situation, fully expecting me to cooperate this time. She laid out her case. She then makes the demand again, and it wasn't a question this time. And again I told her no, that I come home to relax and this is how I do it. She then asked me if I have kids. Now I'm thinking, uh-oh, I'm child-free. And according to the laws of parenting, my thoughts and opinions are completely and instantly invalid unless I pop out at least one crotch spawn. So I tell her no, I don't have kids, and she smirked and said, "I thought so. Well, just you wait. One day, you'll understand." Now I was ready for a lecture on how to handle kids properly or something, but she just jerks her son away towards the other woman, who I assumed was still there. The Karen said something as she went, but I didn't really hear it, so I don't know if it was to me, her son, or her friend. Maybe she was just grumbling to herself. Now, I hadn't seen those two before yesterday, but apparently they're out here for at least an hour daily around that time. There's a pool, a few barbecue pits, and a grassy area outside my unit, so I get to see all the good dogs walk by, and it really makes my day. I really hope she doesn't cause issues for me. I just want to live there and not be bothered. And I'm not going to help parent her child. I just don't get how she thinks that she can ask a total stranger to turn off the TV in their home because she's punishing a child in hers. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. I'm proud of myself for standing my ground, as brief as the encounter was, and I do worry for the kid though. Guys, what an absurd thing to demand from a neighbor. Stop watching your TV. My son's grounded, and he's not allowed to watch. Like, the Karen knows she can stand anywhere else outside and talk to her friend, right? She doesn't have to stand right there. So OP does come back with an update, and it says, "So a small development, I called CPS. I thought about it a lot since posting yesterday. I even consulted a few people who I know have been on both sides, reporting and being reported. After telling them the story and hearing their experiences and advice, I decided to go ahead and do it." Now, what really did it for me was that while the kid might have done something to earn the grounding, her physically jerking him around, yelling in his face, and especially his reactions pushed me to do it for his benefit. I did it anonymously, and I don't know which exact unit she's in. I was kind of surprised that I talked to an actual person though. At first, she kind of had the tone of just taking a general complaint. But as soon as I explained the kid's reactions, especially being completely nonverbal when being yelled at and shook, she took more interest. I was warned that this call didn't guarantee an investigation. For now, because I just moved in, I don't want to make it seem like I'm gonna be that strict, nosy neighbor that reports every little thing, even if a legitimate worry in this case. Update number 2. First off, I want to say a huge thank you to all the advice and awards. I never expected it to get this big. Second, just to get it out of the way, the kid's been removed to his biological dad's house and he's doing well. He's wanted there and loved, from what I've been told. So last night, I heard some people talking just outside of my patio on the walkway, like a small crowd of people, and they hung around talking for a bit. It drew my attention to see what was going on. Almost right away, I got that they were talking about the mama Karen and her kid. I waffled a moment, but then went on my patio to listen better and speak up. I asked about the situation and I said that I'd been worried for the boy. So it turns out this is Karen's third child, and the other two had also been removed. They let me know that this kid was now with his biological dad, while the other two had been put in the childcare system, because their fathers either didn't want them or couldn't take them. The crowd was there because they wanted to gossip about cops and CPS showing up to get the kid. One of them was her neighbor, and said that she didn't beg for her kid not to be taken so much as she begged for herself to not be arrested. She was also yelling and screaming at the cops. By the end of it, the kid is out from under her and she wasn't arrested, but she was given some sort of a ticket or summons concerning the kid's treatment. I told them my experience with her, and they agreed that it was right to call CPS. After hearing their stories of encounters with her and calls to CPS over the last 8 years she's lived there, I knew I made the right choice in this case. After being reassured that the kid was safe with his biological dad and wife, I thanked them for the info and went back inside. So that's it. The kid's been rescued, and I'm so relieved for him. Guys, what a crazy fallout. And honestly, I'm pretty sure if OP didn't make the call to CPS, sooner or later, one of the other neighbors would have done it, and the same end result would have occurred. Like, I'm so shocked, guys. 3 kids and multiple CPS calls over the last 8 years. Oh my freaking goodness. Stop having kids, right? So this story happened 1.5 years ago. My parents own a little restaurant where we sell snacks, cakes, candies, and various fast foods. It was named after my grandparents, so let's call the place Joe's. Whenever I get free time, I usually hang out there with my friends to have something to do. I also help out when it becomes a bit busy, like serving people or taking orders from them. And yes, we do have employees. My dad also allows me to keep the tip money. So now on to the story. A very few of the regular customers know that I'm the son of the owner. And my parents, the owners, also work there themselves, but people often tend to think of them as employees. So one day on a weekend, a woman who, I don't know, might be in her 30s or 40s, enters with her bratty kid, who I suppose was around 13 or so. Now, as it was a weekend, it was a little bit busy, so she was told to sit on one of the waiting chairs. Around 20 minutes or so, the table was ready for her. She sat there and I went to ask for orders. Now, I don't exactly remember what she ordered. It might have been a sandwich or whatever. So I went to the kitchen to give the order. Now, I was just standing near the register. Her bratty kid was running around screaming. He was running into people, stepping on people's feet, touching their food, and the mother, as usual, didn't seem to care, and she was on her phone. Now, I was very annoyed by this, so I grabbed the kid's hand while he was running, told him not to run around. The kid starts crying and runs back to his mom. The mother, fumed by this, comes up to me stomping and says, "How dare you touch my kid?" I tell her, he was running around and annoying people. You didn't see he was touching other people's food? To this, the Karen says, "Well, he's a kid. He can do whatever he wants to do." I then tell her, "Yeah, not in my supervision." At this, Karen then pulls out, "Do you even know who I am?" Now I'm thinking, here we go again. I've read a lot of stories like this, but I never thought something like this would ever happen to me. I knew what was gonna happen, so I thought of playing along, so I say, "No ma'am, I don't know who you are." She then says, "Well then you should know that I'm the wife of the owner, and you've made a big mistake hurting my son. You're not gonna work here anymore, because my husband is gonna fire you." Hearing this, I'm thinking in my mind, I thought she would go for sister or friend, but she went for wife. So now we're gonna have some fun. I tell her, "Ma'am, I don't even think you know his..." She then cuts me off and says, "Of course I know my husband. His name is Frank." Now I was kind of shocked that she did know my dad's name, as she didn't look like a person who would. I then say to her, "Ma'am, I'm very sorry that I acted rude towards your son, but please don't get me fired. It's the only job I have." The Karen then says to me, "Then you should have thought about that before you hit my son." I tell her, "Ma'am, he was..." She then cuts me off again and says, "Shut up." Now hearing the commotion, my dad comes out and she screams, "Your employee has been harassing my son. I want him fired now." My dad looks at me and says, "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but I can't fire him without a reason." The Karen, again with her BS, says, "Do you even know who you're talking to? I'm the owner's wife, and I can't stand employees hitting my son." Now at this point, my dad has the biggest grin on his face. And she says, "Why are you laughing? I'm serious." She then went into total rage mode, and she says, "You know what? Forget it. I'm calling my husband and complaining about you and your employee. You will both be fired, so go home." At this point, my dad says, "Ma'am, I'm the owner of Joe's, and you can't have me fired." Hearing this, Karen's face goes from red to completely white, like if blood was drained from her. My dad then says, "I'm the owner and manager of Joe's, and you are in no way my wife. And this employee that you want fired is my son." She then looks at me, and I just couldn't hold back my laugh anymore. And just then, her order was ready. She just drags her crying kid by the arm, and she didn't even take her order. We still have a great laugh about it to this day. Guys, I've said this so many times. Don't pretend you know the owner if you don't. And seriously, if you really don't know the owner, don't pretend to be his wife. You'll just end up embarrassed like this woman did. Like, it's just so crazy how some people get so worked up and have to resort to, "Do you know who I am?" and then lie. Like, how many times does it actually work? A few years back, my husband and I had gone to the jeweler's together to choose a ring. I chose a pretty heart-shaped diamond. It was fairly small, at just under 3/4 of a carat, but it was crystal clear and of fine quality. My fellow wasn't a cheapskate. I preferred something comfortable which I could play my piano and violin while wearing, which wouldn't dominate my tiny little hand. He insisted it be of the finest quality. Although that wasn't very important to me, I couldn't have cared less. This diamond, however, wasn't so ostentatious that it overwhelmed my dainty hand. I would have much rather had an opal, which is my birthstone. But the jeweler informs me that opals were fragile for everyday wear, so we left the shop that day with a pretty little diamond perched upon my ring finger. I was walking proudly and tall, fresh from the jeweler's and joining in the festivities of our best friend's house party. I felt almost triumphant. I had finally become engaged. My engagement was finally cemented, and I'd been officially betrothed after having previously spent a year living in sin with my guy. My dad could no longer consider me a fallen woman. So while circulating, speaking to people at the party, I tried not to gesture too much with my newly bedazzled hand. I couldn't help myself though, the ring was so pretty. I was doing a very poor job of keeping my hand still, and I was gesturing and gesticulating, looking like a fool. And the vulture ladies, none too impressed with the tiny rock on my finger, flocked around and mocked me. My fiancé mentioned that we were newly engaged, and he grabbed my hand and stilled it for the ladies to take a closer look. As they craned their bird necks towards my hand, exaggerating the need for such close proximity in order to see it, I was simply happy to have someone finally notice, even though they were clearly poking fun at me. I explained the fact that wearing a diamond was a new experience for me, and my heart was soaring with a new profound happiness that I'd never known before. It was also my first and only engagement, which seemed like a more interesting topic to them as most of these birds were already on their second and third marriages. I distinctly remember one woman saying, "Oh, you just got engaged? And that's your ring?" So this light-hearted ribbing seemed to encourage one awful woman in the group, who was known as the entitled woman. She was spoiled, and more spoiled. She made one cruel comment after another. The first thing she said was, "Will somebody please bring me a magnifying glass so I could see that thing?" Followed by, It is pretty, but where's the rest of it? The woman then squawks at her own joke, and the other woman parroted her laughter, and she holds up her hand next to my own and compared her much larger diamond ring to my smaller one. The woman then told me how cute mine was as she wrinkled her beak in disgust, and then she moved around her hand so the diamond reflection could blind the other women in the group. She wasn't finished tormenting me, and she continued her humiliation. She then says out loud, "It's so small, you poor thing. You know, I made my husband know that I wouldn't marry him unless he gave me at least 2 carats. And what's this one? Maybe less than a carat? Maybe half a carat? It's so tiny. So here's what you need to do, honey. Complain, complain, complain." That's what I did. And after complaining for a year, guess what? He made sure to come back with a ring twice the size. Don't marry your guy until he comes back with a diamond much bigger. You are worth it. Now I must have looked confused because she laughs, pats me on the head as if I were a child, and then sucked in her teeth in pity for me as she rose to leave me with that thought. She said this to me in such a condescending, pretentious manner and with such glee that I could almost visualize the cruelty of her words. So the funny thing is, she's been through 2 divorces, and I've worn my ring with pride for over 20 years. Hey, as long as you like the ring, who the heck cares, right? I just want to say thank you to Carol for sending me that wonderful story, and she does share a picture of her ring. And that's Entitled People, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stories today. If you did, hit that thumbs up, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. A psycho Karen attacks OP in a Walmart with her wheelchair because OP refused to serve her and was a customer. Guys, it's such a ridiculous story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.